Welcome to Working Dogs and Whiskey. Join Sean White and Jonathan Moses as they pour a glass and dive into insightful and fun conversations about dogs in all their incredible roles. So grab your favorite drink and let's raise a glass to great stories, laughs, and a whole lot of dog talk.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Working Dogs and Whiskey. I'm sitting here again with my friend Jonathan Moses, co-host. John, how you been, man?
Pretty good. I'm busy. Academy's got me all over the place, but making the most of it. What you been getting into?
Trying to bullshit this episode because we just talked a couple of days with Mike Lilly, but
Yeah, we talked on what, 2 days ago?
yeah. But anyway,
back to back.
Yeah, so I'll just skip the banter. This is our second time recording in 1 week, so proud of that.
Better.
Yeah. And with that, we got our another guest, third guest in a row, actually. This will be, and we have Mr. Antonio Rodriguez. And you go by A-Rod?
All right, A-Rod.
Yeah.
What's going on, brother? How are you?
Yeah. Great, man. Great. Cheers to everybody out there. This is Working Dogs and Whiskey. Cheers to everybody out there in the law enforcement and military K9 community. And God bless everybody.
Yep.
On a Saturday. Cheers.
Cheers.
I like it already. So, A-Rod, just real quick. So just give us just kind of your origin, like where you started, how you got into K9, and then where you're at, and we'll kind of go from there, brother.
Well, so I retired from active duty Air Force in 2013. And so I've spent, and I think, we talked previously about me having a connection with the San Antonio area. I pretty much spent most of my adult life in the San Antonio area in Texas. And so retired in 2013, Air Force. I spent a majority of my career in the K9 and as a K9 handler, worked myself up to, trainer, kennel master, unit trainer. I was a pre-deployment senior instructor. I was a special tactics member and instructor. And then when I retired in 2013, I had these illusions that I was going to start my own K9 company. I think my timing was off. And so, the industry was pretty tough for small startup businesses for selling dogs in 2013. So I took an opportunity to go contract for the State Department and a couple other 3-letter agencies. So I spent some time in Iraq, a couple locations in Iraq, for the State Department as a contractor. Great opportunity to learn. And I actually did spend tons of time as a canine handler. I actually went in as a mobile emergency service team or personal protection detail for that. Then I ended up at the U.S. Embassy as a training director eventually. But then I eventually kind of wanted to get back to the States and knew that wasn't my end game. So I actually worked for TSA for 5 minutes. So I got hired on at the Denver International Airport right around 2015 initially as a handler, then went on as a supervisor, and then as a kind of adjunct, unit trainer there locally. And then I was offered an opportunity to go train dogs and handlers for the use of thought program. So I literally 20 minutes from my house. I was living in Monument, Colorado, Fort Carson. So I took that opportunity to go down there and work with the 10 Special Forces group as their civilian trainer. So that was kind of my last punch in the clock job. And then in 2022, I said, hey, let's, I started training in the middle of all that. Like we all do, we try to start our little side hustles. And I started training pet dogs when I was in Colorado for a little bit, but I was just doing it on referral. It wasn't like really an official business or anything like that. But my ambitions were always to get back to Texas. And in the middle of all that, in the middle of the pandemic, the wife and I looked at our finances. We prayed about it. Hey, what I'm sure you guys were kind of understand that whole thing about civilian employees and contractors and the federal employees getting the vaccination and all that. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm like, so we started looking at like, hey, what's our end game here? So we always wanted to move back to Texas. So man, we just went all in, and some days you're learning, some days you're earning. So we just said, let's do it. So we just resigned my position and then moved back to Texas. So right now we operate ORO-K9 Services, which is Old Republic of K9 Service. Actually, we also run an apparel line, workwear, fight stuff.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask you
you're
about
gonna have to
the-
get one.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So that's kind of my journey in the canine industry. I've had, man, just a phenomenal, very blessed to have access to phenomenal trainers and great thinkers and people across all domains of dog training and dog, all kinds of dog stuff, on the pet side, civilian side, military side, special operations side. This is where we're at now, man. We're here in Paris, Texas, Northeast Texas, and growing our business and always willing to give back to the DOD because that's where I came from, including my wife, Michelle. She came from the body armor side of the civilian industry. And so that's kind of how we met. But she's dedicated a majority of her adult life, giving back to the law enforcement and military community with what she did before. Now she's a groomer. Now she runs the grooming side of the business and she manages everything else that my knuckle dragging butt is not capable of doing.
Yeah, we'll touch in on that, but I want to kind of unpack that a little bit deeper as far as the where you started out in the military. So I know did you start out into K9 or were you actual?
No. Yeah. Security forces, military police. I did 4 years of the traditional security forces, security police. That's what they used to call it back then. Towards the end of that kind of span of my short brief little adolescent life, a reckless little E2, yeah. So that time it was just like, just trying to find the next appealing thing to do in the military. And then went to K9 school. I was supposed to go into another unit. When I got orders, I was supposed to go to the 20th, and then they moved to Moody Air Force Base. They asked me if I wanted to stay there and train dogs there at Lackland. So, which was it's not very common. And I know it's not very common in the Marine Corps either.
Yeah.
For people to get asked to stay there. So I just took the opportunity. So I spent the first 4 years as being a canine handler, actually being a trainer at DTS.
Can we put a stake in that real quick?
Yeah.
Just a quick pen. So, all right, for me, I know what got me into, because I did about a year of actual law enforcement, like military police work. And then the first time they described what K9 did, I always knew I wanted to do K9 going into it. But because I wanted to, at that time, I was very ambitious, wanted to deploy and find bombs and all that good stuff. So I knew eventually I wanted to be K9 going into it. But when they described to me is pretty much you have the amount of autonomy you have. It's just you and the dog. And I was like, I don't have to deal with another person riding in a vehicle. And they're like, fuck no, it's just you and the dog. And I was like, sounds great to me. So that was like my enticement to get into it. Did you have any of that? Like anything, or was it just something that just came up for you?
No. So I had a couple, we used to call them, now they would call them deployments. They weren't really deployments. They were more like TDYs to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, stuff like that, where we were just working checkpoints and stuff like that. So yeah, I had a couple opportunities to go TDY deploy to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, and I ran into a bunch of canine handlers, and I'm just like, wow, man, this is like pretty cool what you guys do. And obviously I was just working checkpoints, just managing that stuff as a little E3, E4. So when I got back to my duty station, I'm just like, yeah, man, I think I'm going to put in for this and apply for it. And then obviously you have to go through kind of the screening process. But interesting enough, I think the Marine Corps has back in that time frame. I don't know how it is now. Had the most rigorous screening process for getting traditional military police into becoming, being selected to be a canine handler. Ours was, there were steps and obviously, benchmarks that you had to meet, but it was nothing like I remember when I was at DTS, talking to other Marines, learning what they had to go through to even get selected as a handler. One, two, being selected to go and be a trainer at Lackland. It was just like, I think at one point I don't know if you guys, they would categorize that as a B billet to go and be an instructor or a trainer at DTS. They were trying to get both of those kind of aligned. I don't know if they ever did that, but I just remember just the challenges that I would talk to the other Marines about what they had to do. And mine was probably about 50% of those. Yeah, that percent they had to put in. It was more just like,
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what year it was. I mean, obviously I wasn't around during that time, but I've heard stories. But knowing that you went straight from pretty much essentially canine school into DTS, which is, for those that don't know, the dog training school, where dogs are imported from multiple vendors from across the world to some of the homegrown dogs that are bred through Doc Hilliard's program. But anyways, those dogs are all green dogs or new dogs that have no clarity of task, have no reason to be there. And so we have to, us as trainers have to define that for them and outline what that looks like. So you going straight from handlers, all right, I don't want to age you, but we kind of have to. What year was that?
1999.
Yeah, damn, son. He's looking, he's like, I don't even know if I was born.
I was just like, that's the year I was born. Wasn't 1999.
That's what I'm saying.
1999.
Okay,
Yeah.
1999. All right, I was 6. All right, so it's my son's age. But
Yep.
all right. Well, I can only imagine how that was.
Yeah.
It definitely is not the DTS of today or the
No.
341st of today.
God, it couldn't be. Yeah. So all right. So let's continue this story. Well, so you started training. How was that for you? I mean, you did how many years there training?
4 years. 4 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you did the full 4.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But that never really ended my relationship with DTS because my next follow-on assignment, hold on, we're getting reconnect.
All right, we had a quick lag. I'm sorry, you said you were at DTS and then the next 4 years you were
Yeah. So I went to Korea and then came back and then I was stationed at Randolph, which is like 30 minutes down the road, Air Force Base in San Antonio. So that it never really ended my relationship with DTS because I was constantly in the scope of being a kennel master or a trainer. I was always still had a pretty robust relationship with the trainers at DTS. So I would still always come back and train with them.
Okay. Yeah, it was kind of lagging, but I think I got the gist of it. You said you went from Lackland to Korea and then back to Lackland? Okay. I'm tracking
to Randolph Air Force Base, which is like right down
Randolph.
the road.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, just right up the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you went to Randolph. All right. So what, in your opinion, because this is always like a subject of conversation for the military, I think the Army is the only one that still does that type of program where you can go straight from basic handler's course into being a trainer. But from your time or your experience having done that, and I think you're the only airman that I know that has ever done that, you feel like that benefited you going into the kennels first?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And the reason it's you having a kind of an intimate understanding about how things operate down there. There's always this contentious relationship between what they call the fleet field and operational units. And that's always existed across the plane of the military working dog enterprise. It's never gone away. It's always been there. They talk about it to this day. They were talking about it while I was down there. So the benefits for me was I was able to be there during a generational kind of a benchmark where the industry or the military working dog industry was changing the dynamics of how to train dogs. We had phenomenal trainers that were there. We had phenomenal Marine trainers, Air Force trainers, and Army trainers that were there to manage and kind of just take how we were training dogs from a very mechanical and just kind of a crank and yank methodology to a more progressive methodology to mitigate and get dogs into the DoD community that were probably mediocre at best, but we could still get them through and get them to a point to where they were efficient and effective, maybe just exclusively in a detection domain, but we weren't just like shutting down dogs left and right. So I was very fortunate to be involved and be a part of that generation where things were kind of changing. The drawback to that was that when I went out and eventually got to an operational unit, I was, portrayed or seen as an obstacle to people that, to the operational units. They were like, well, you've never actually operationally handled a dog, it deployed or whatever the case, the context was, because I came from a very training side, a very training centric aspect of it. So I was kind of, the consequence of that was I was a little bit behind the power curve in that, but the learning curve and the acceleration that I needed to learn and get there, I'm a very, I always thought of myself as a very aggressive. I took always an aggressive approach in everything I did and did it, you need 100%, I'm going to give you 120 and keep pushing. So I was able to overcome that, but it took time. It took time to kind of change that mindset. But that was me personally. And, we learned that generation, we learned to be able to apply those attributes where we were trying to change things the way the DoD program looked at training dogs. And then get them out to the field and get them out and get dogs to perform very well. But, I was blessed to be a part of certain things of that as a very young E5 at the time, once I was there for a little bit there in San Antonio at Lackland. So those are some of the speed bumps that I ran into coming out of there.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha.
And I mean, it's got to be interesting because it's like, on one hand, they're like, you don't know how to handle handle a dog operationally. And then on another hand, you're just like, dude, I trained your fucking dog that you deployed with. So which one, but,
So one of the funniest things about coming from the handler's course, and I'll remember it was so impressionable in my mind. There were two specific things. One was when I showed up to day one, I showed up to training at DTF and I had the dogs that they gave me and I had them on a short safety leash. And they looked at me, they were like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing, man? I'm like, a short safety leash, man. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. like I'm just here. So that was the first thing. They didn't bash me too hard, but that was the first thing.
Yeah.
The second impressionable moment was I had one of my really good friends right now. Well, two of my good friends. One of them I kind of lost track of him was Chris Jacobin, Air Force dog trainer.
Yeah, I know Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this dog that I had, man, he kept on like coming out of the trailer and he just kept on just tagging me all over the place. And so I was just like, God dang it, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with this dog. So I'm just trying to problem solve. I put a muzzle on this dog and got him out. And then just like Chris goes, okay, I mean, you're thinking the process through. And then I don't know if you know this guy's name. He's kind of a legend, or he used to be a legend in the Marine Corps. He just retired, I think, like last year or the year before. Gunny Cartoon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard his name.
Yeah, I think he retired a Master Gun,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gunny Cartoon. So I used to train dogs with him. And so he was there too. And he was just like, what are you doing? He was like, look at this guy. And then Chris Jacobin kind of stuck up for me. He goes, hey, whoa, hold on a second, man. He's trying to problem solve. Let him work this thing out on his own. But Cartoon was just like, he just started laughing. He was just like, no way, man. But it was just funny because Cartoon and I became really, really good friends because I really liked the way he trained. He was just a very get in the dog's mind type of trainer. And he was just a phenomenal trainer, in my opinion. He was just a really good trainer. So I really did, take those opportunities to learn from him as well.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Jacobin, real quick. He's I always call him Jack, but he's a good dude. When I met him in 2017 or 18, somewhere thereabout, he was a evaluator, obviously retired from the Air Force, and
Right.
he was a civilian evaluator. And I love that man, dude. Like he held the criteria, and he would observe your training. And I remember I had just started out; I was maybe a year deep, and I brought one dog out, did a heel or whatever, and all this stuff. We were going through obedience, and then he was like, "All right, that's good enough." And I was like, "Okay," and I'm
You're
going
like,
through
"That's
the
it?"
process. Yeah, well, no, I kept going through the process. I was like,
Yeah.
"All right, I guess that's good for healing." And he was like, "No, that's good enough." He's like, "You can put him up." And I was like, "Are you sure you don't want to see everything else?" He's like, "Brother, I've been watching you train. Like, you're consistent with your product. I see what you do. I know that I can already see it in the dog. He's fine." And I mean,
Yeah.
we went through the rest of the certification, but the acknowledgement of knowing that, like, distinguishing between a decent trainer and then somebody you got to watch that's trying to, float something by them. So, and I was always honest and upfront with him. I was like, "Look, this dog it may or may not happen," and he always appreciated that. And I didn't know until years
Absolutely.
later that he had been in DTS, but no, he's a solid dude. I just saw him maybe 2 weeks ago. Ran into him going into the 3-1st building, but just a really solid dude. Yeah.
So I would definitely consider Chris one of my closest friends and biggest mentors during that time period of my life. No, man, those were the really good memories. It was a different military. It was a different DOD. We had a good time. We handled things. We used to call it going to the pit. If you talk to old guys and talk about going to the pit, we would handle our business there. Sometimes you lost, sometimes you won. That's how we handle our differences, going to the pit. Yeah, so it was a great opportunity to train with a lot of good trainers. And those moments, man, were probably the best in my military career. And we handled business, man. It was all branches of service. It was just a good relationship. And when we would say like, hey, when we had differences, we would take them to the pit. I don't know if you know that reference.
Oh,
And
no,
so the
I
pit,
know. Yeah.
yeah, the pit was that where we handled business, and we put in work. We had a difference with somebody else, or we had a squabble, and once we went to the pit, then it was squashed. Whatever it was, a professional difference, training difference, or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything was left at the pit. And yeah, so it was, in my opinion, it was just an opportunity to be around, trainers and guys that just put in the work. And it was just a really good relationship all around. And I'm sure it still exists, but at different nuances and different levels. But
Yeah.
it was like, it was rough. Some days you lost, some days you won. But yeah, there was several moments that you would get guys, Army guys and Air Force guys going against ring. Yeah, man, we squabble out there, man. We get dirty. And yeah, there was blood spilled, but
That's how you build
there
the best
was.
relationship right there.
There was. Yeah. We built like really good relationships we built lifelong friends moving on to, decades and decades. But it was those moments that really just kind of, that were impactful for me personally, just being in that close cell and community. So it was.
So I had a quick question for you, just to touch back on something you were saying, where you went from training to operational. I know you said there were some difficulties and you went at it pretty hard to adjust, but can you talk about some of those adjustments? Like, what was the hardest part about that transition specifically?
Well, the first transition I saw was I went to Korea because I left DTS and then went to Korea. I mean, really, it was just kind of the mission mindset in Korea was just kind of a little bit different. And then the acceptance of being, during that period, it wasn't like a high threat situation. But then I got stuck as a trainer instead of a handler. So they completely just threw me into a trainer position. And with some resentment, I had to deal with that. So you deal with that because people know your background or whatever the case may be. So again, and I carried that through my entire lifespan and catalog of just going from different positions and everything else is, if you don't have a handler that has buy-in to what you're trying to show them, then you're resisting so much more than what you could do to make them productive. So I can spend all day showing you how to do something or guiding you and coaching you how to do something. But if you don't buy into the process, then my job is not done. You're just some mechanical person that's just going to do what you're going to do in front of me, but you're not going to do it when you're away from me. So I started learning that early in my career, just being around, and that's kind of transcend every component of where I've done everything with dealing with civilian law enforcement, dealing with most recently, just in the last decade, just working with the special operations community. I spent I worked in that position for a little over 4 years, but I spent practically my first year, just shutting my mouth and listening and watching. And then I spent the last 3 years or whatever that was guiding and coaching. But you were dealing with definitely alpha personalities and egos. But I had a formula for that even before that. So I knew that if I gained trust and gained confidence, then if they have buy-in to the process, and I'm not afraid to let handlers fail because that's where handlers learn. I've probably spent more time getting it wrong the first time than I got it right the first time. So I definitely wanted to see, like, all right, man, go ahead and work that out on your own and let them fail. And I feel like that has brought me a lot more, I don't even want to say appeal, but being more approachable about problem solving certain situations. And that's kind of where I've gone to in the last couple decades is just, you got to let that go, man. You got to let them come to you and they have to have buy-in because if they don't have buy-in, then they're not going to do it. They're not going to put in the work.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're seeing something similar in today's military as far as in regards to dogs. And you mentioned it earlier that during your tenure at Lackland as a trainer, it was kind of a evolutionary period. You guys were transitioning into different concepts, different approaches into training. And I think we're on that, everything repeats itself. And we're kind of doing the same thing as far as entertaining different tools, different ways to approach dogs. And we're kind of fighting those same battles. We got resistance of people that don't want to adhere to it. And then there's other people that are interested, but they don't know where to start that education on it. But one of the things I like that you mentioned, and this was probably one of my biggest approaches, and I've told John this story 1,000 times. When I was at DTS, the dog training school, they put me at we called it a lead trainer. So I was leading the team within like my first 8 months of being there. And it was not that I was that great at training. It was kind of like I was the best of the worst type situation. And they needed to divide it up. So however it happened, I was leading a team of like 40 dogs for patrol work and obedience. And then I had a team of like 8 other trainers, and all of them were senior to me as far as time on deck or that had been there. And so I got a lot of pushback. And I remember thinking about it, and I was like, I could either force them, try to force them to do it, and we could just keep going back and forth. And eventually we're going to end up at the pit, like you mentioned. Like, I'm just going to fight somebody because I know my patience only goes so far. And I'm like, fuck it. But then I just started letting it go. And I was like, I have my own dogs to train. I would make my inputs. And then if they didn't want to hear it, I was like, hey, your date for certification doesn't change. And I would just let them fail. So when they failed once, I made them that bet. I told them, I was like, you have one time to fail with this dog because it's my responsibility. And then after that, we got to try it my way. Like, obviously you're, a couple of weeks, but all that to tie in, to know that approach is still validated, and to see it on your side of the coin where you're going into special operations, kind of foreign territory, and I've been around them, but I can only imagine the day in and day out, going through that. And I think that's still going to be the best approach going into using tools for the military and different concepts, is pick somebody to kind of pilot it, and then let the others they'll either succeed or they won't meet the mark, and then they'll have to adhere to kind of the more modern ways of training. John, did you have anything?
No, same thing you guys are saying. It seems like certification and timelines definitely puts that pressure on people to make them want to change, or for them to start looking for other answers when they can't find it themselves. I just had another question for you. So you traveling and doing seminars, having dealt with military, law enforcement, special operations, how are you fitting your teaching style into like condensed time frames when you've got seminars or workshops going on, or you're speaking to people? How are you getting that buy-in and making sure you get your key points across with limited time as opposed to being there for long periods of time?
Real quick before you answer, I fucking hate you, John. We haven't talked about our questions. I'm like lining my question out. I'm like, of course he would ask that.
So
that's awesome though. Good.
So ironically, I was just having a conversation with the sergeant major of the 31 Kilo program today and yesterday. She continuously graciously invites me out to come and teach at the Military Working Dog Symposium. And, it's hard. You guys know this. It's hard to condense, a snapshot or an end state for a particular objective into very limited time and give it access to, a broad band of consumers. And I call them consumers, clients, handlers, trainers. I call them consumers because they're consuming the information you're giving to them. And so I was explaining to her my rebuttal to what she was asking me to do is, it's like, I'm pretty confident I can present the same material, but I feel like the students are not getting the full impact of what they could do if I would have them for more than one day. If I had the same students for a couple days, it would be more impactful. And the consequences of running these events nationwide, you have all these different seminars, or like, I don't even call them seminars. When you're doing courses, that's a separate thing. When you're doing seminars or like, no, take that back. When you're doing conferences, you're asked to come and present some material, that's a separate sequence. A majority nationwide, probably internationally wide, are focused more on a lecture and getting potential consumers or clients to absorb the material at tidbits, or like giving them a bait so that you have a marketing capability to get them to move forward with actually, that's the segue into getting people to do those things. However, the industry is changing now, and the industry is changing for the benefit of more of a working conference, more of a hands-on, tangible, we're going to work this stuff. But the consequence to that is you're trying to maximize your throughput into these events, but the information has to be very segmented, orientated, and the approach needs to be that you're maximizing the amount of information that you can give to a particular audience. So there are consequences, and the consequences come into play, like you just said. How do you get this information out in a short period of time? I did an event. Well, it wasn't even an event. I had Steve Antomochi invited me out to do his training there in Dallas, and he's not very far from me. He's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I said, hey, man, we're going to do this, this, and this. I actually set myself on a timer. I'm like, all right, go. I'm going to hit these highlights. I said, Steve, tell me if I'm going over, man. He had 1 day of training and trying to get these dogs through, just showing them how to get their dogs to stick their head in a dopamine box. Boom, add a shot box from the outside to get them to gut fire inoculation. So we have less than 8 hours to do this. So set me in a timer. I set my clock on my timer. I'm just like, I'm going to go. I'm going to hit these highlights. Boom, boom, boom. And then go. So if you're long-winded, you're going to cut yourself short. If you're talking too much, you're going to lose your audience. Worst case scenario, people are going to walk out of a certain situation or a certain training venue and they're going to be just like, this guy talked for 1 hour and gave me like 10 minutes of useful information. So it's all about being efficient and effective about how you present yourself. And it is very challenging. It is very challenging because at the end, you want handlers to walk away with information that's useful. I am not trying to, yes, of course I want to market myself. I want to market my company. Have me come out and I'll give you the whole fledged thing. But if you walk away from my course and you didn't get a majority of that information and it wasn't not segmented and presented in the way that you could walk away from it, then I didn't do my job. I didn't do my job. Whether it's a lecture, presentation, or it's a demonstration, a majority of it moving forward is going to be like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to guide you, I'm going to coach you, and I'm going to validate you. So those are the key principles that I work on, especially in the working dogs where we're doing stuff that's, and I always say no dog team left behind, because if I see dogs being challenged, if I can, I will step aside. I'm like, hey, I want everybody to get something out of this. So I will take a moment to go over there and approach that situation and allow them to get something. We're not going to fix dog behaviors in one day. We're not going to fix dog behaviors in an 8-hour period, especially with the complex things that we're asking these dogs to do. But it's offering them solutions, presenting material that they can digest, give them strategies to move forward. So when they walk away from whatever I'm giving them, they have a strategy to move forward. Whether they come back to me and say, hey, Rod, I want you to come out and teach a 3-day gunfire inoculation course. That's awesome. I'm there and available. I'm giving you segments of this, but I want you to be successful with something productive.
I love that. I love that. You don't see a lot of people, like you said, like going to like HITS or some of these conferences where it's just back-to-back instruction. Some of them you walk away and you're like, man, I got something I can go home and practice with. And then sometimes you're like, that was kind of a marketing thing, or like you said, there were 10 minutes of useful information. So I like hey, let's get the key points across. Let's make sure you leave here with something you can work on. And then something me and Sean talk about is making sure that when they leave training, they have that kind of next steps to move forward.
Yeah. And that is the best thing to do, Matt, because people will walk out, whatever it is. If I do a 5-day course or whatever the case can be, I always say like, okay, so this is the next step to move forward. This is what you need to be thinking about and marinating about how we get your dog from here to the next steps. And then they could mentally start building the strategy, internalizing how they're going to approach that. And so that's a separate segment. We talk about conferences where we can market ourselves and we can provide something to the industry. And then we talk about actual courses. So courses, definitely so in my course, how I approach my courses, what I do is I don't take any more than 10 working spots at any one time, because 10 working spots is enough for me to handle and to manage and to ensure that everybody is getting full access to me. If I go over 10 working spots, then I bring in a second instructor, because I'm not going to leave. Again, the whole concept, I'm kind of an idealist, no dog team left behind. I don't want anybody to come to any of the courses that I'm sponsoring or that I'm hosting or doing, and they're like, well, I sat in my vehicle or I never got enough repetitions in. If I have 10, I can manage. I can move guys around, and then sometimes I have more experienced guys that show up. I can just say, hey, man. And then I was just in Arizona late last year in November, and I had federal guys, I had, military guys. And then there was one guy that was more experienced. I said, hey, man, run this lane for me, because I'm going to go over here and I want to help and assess this other dog and kind of handle this situation. So at least they get something out of this. And so I really, really try to be proactive about doing that, because at the end of the day, I was at E1, E2 that showed up to some training, and I'm just like, well, I guess I'm just here, my dog or whatever I'm doing. And that I never, I don't ever want to put somebody in a situation to where they are not getting the attention at the lowest level that should be advocated for them at the end of the day.
Yeah. I like that mentality, because It's an all-inclusive thing, and it's a genuine thing. Because from what I'm learning, seeing more in depth in the industry, it's pretty fucking easy to sell yourself and to just do it for the dollar. And of course, we all have to make our living and all that.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
yeah, and I mean that's inherent with what you do. But one of the things I wanted to know is, do you let them know like off rip? Because I think managing expectations plays a very big role in these type of condensed timelines. Like off rip, letting them know, hey, look, I can only show you X amount. I'm going to leave you with the next steps, but orient your mind into knowing that like we're only going to take a glimpse of what your dog can do and get your dog on a travel or a path in training, and then it's up to you to continue to take them down the highway of training in that direction, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm asking that correctly, but do you set them up for some type of expectation?
You know, the greatest, I want to say the greatest, but the best approach to that I've learned is actually dealing with pet dogs owners.
Oh God, yeah, that's where I got it from, dude. That's a good segue. But yeah, no, we were just I was going to bring that up about pets, but yeah, that's exactly where I got it from. But I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And the reason being is because we are so, being from a military background, even a law enforcement background, we are so calculated and just like setting like a specific standard, like, hey, dress right dress, you're going to do it this way. Or, you know, we have certain expectations about the mental capacity of a student or a client, a consumer that's just going to be able to process that information the way that we traditionally process it. So going back to pet dogs have kind of really just broadened my perspective about being able to handle a different mentality about that, about what they expect, what we can provide. You know, I always say, you know, my trainer here, I just said, I always tell her, it's like, don't oversell it. Don't oversell it. Just tell them what you can do, but always provide better than that. Like you're going to like this. Yeah. Don't set them up at this standard, set them here at a lower standard, bring them like I said, this is what we can do. And then outperform that. And then that it meets and exceeds their expectations beyond the realm of what they could ever do. So I typically, I kind of take that approach as far as dealing with clients on the pet side. But man, with the younger generation being across the DoD enterprise, you kind of got to take a little bit of that approach, a little bit in regards to what they think they're in, with the situation they're in. And then you have to frame it in a way that they can understand, that they hope about what you're going to do and expectations. So it's definitely a way to look at it. Absolutely.
And that's huge. I can tell just talking to you, you're definitely a dog nerd just like us. We will go super deep into why this is happening.
Hey, I don't have the van. I told the wife, I'm like, I'm not getting the van.
I crashed my van. I'm back in my truck right now, but I was in the van. But
Yeah,
you know,
I actually got
I know
offered
me
a
and
van
Sean,
today. Yeah.
me and Sean get super deep into the theory of it. And like we spend hours. The whole reason this podcast is a thing is we'd be on the phone for hours of the why and the how is the dog doing this, and just going over that. But something we had to learn, and we both kind of started talking about pet dog training, relating it back to that. They don't want to know why this works all the time or the ins and outs. Sometimes they want just enough information. And it's our job as the teachers to say, okay, here's the key information you need. And it sounds like you got that mastered pretty well over a wide array of different venues and people.
I'm trying, man. But I'm sure, like you all, I get kind of frustrated about certain things about the pet dog industry, or about, so it's tough. And my wife always tells me, like, hey, these aren't soldiers or airmen. You can't. I've had a couple incidences that I'm not proud of. They weren't bad, but when you say something to a client, you're just like, oh God, I should have said that.
Yeah.
Because because you got to catch yourself. So I really have to like mentally prepare. And man, I am so blessed. We're so blessed to be here in Northeast Texas and just so embraced by this community and having what we've been able to do with the pet side. I really, really enjoy it. But sometimes I don't think I would do it well with the demographic of people if I was like in Dallas, people that have a little bit more, I don't know, just a different mindset. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but here in Northeast Texas, we just have a different mentality about different things. And I just really enjoy just getting all sorts of clients that have so many different challenges. But obviously, I mean, we try to operate within that domain of like, we're here to help you. We want you to have a companion that is going to be suitable for your lifestyle. 1, 2 is going to give you peace of mind, and 3 that is going to reduce your stress. That dog is going to have you're going to increase the longevity of your life, of the dog's life, because he has a better attitude and approach to what life is about, and he knows expectations. And so it's awesome. It's awesome, man. It's just been a great experience.
Yeah, as we start to kind of wrap things up, because we're pushing almost an hour, but I wanted to really dial in on that transition. I know you said you did a lot of things, military. Obviously, you retired, if I remember correctly. I want to say 25 years.
No, I did 20.
Oh, 20.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
20, yep.
Okay.
2013. 2013 is when I retired.
Okay, so 20 years, I guess, and then, well, I guess they consider your 5 years with between contracting and everything else. But
yeah.
So I mean, military oriented, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Over 2 decades of working with military. Can you just kind of?
I lost track after 20. Like somebody's asking me, like, how long have you been training dogs? I was like, 20, 25, 26, 20. I'm just like, yeah, I'm approaching. And again, it's not, the number doesn't matter.
No,
the number does not matter. It really doesn't matter. And like I always tell people, I'm just like, look, I've run into super passionate, super enthusiastic, super smart dog trainers that have been doing this for like 5 years, and I'll listen to them. And I'm just saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long I've been doing it. So here's the thing. Here's a trigger for me. When somebody tells you about how long they've been training dogs from the get-go, when you have that conversation, man, I'll be just like, yeah. I'm like, okay, really?
Right.
So
let's see where this is going.
Start thinking about that, man. As soon as somebody says, "Well, I've been training," I'm like, "All right, man, cool story, bro, cool story." Yeah, that's it. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good, man. This is an open podcast. No, I always say it's funny because I always say it's not how long you've been doing it; it's what you've done with your time while you've been it. So, like you said, you can have that 5-year trainer that just happened to stumble across something that you would have never seen in 30 years. And the whole point is to evolutionize dog training. And it doesn't matter. A thief. Yeah.
I'm a thief.
No, we all are. We're all culprits of that. It's intellectual property that we're all just stealing. Yep. And that's one of the reasons why I love this podcast is we get to meet people like yourself. I mean, we're almost tipping into the double digits of just different demographics of trainers. I know John mentioned it on an earlier podcast. We had a nice lady from Sweden. Who would have fucking thought? And John was able to reference her for some training advice. So that's one of the things that I love. And she's a very humble person. She's like, I've only been doing this for X amount of years. I don't really know if I should be advising y'all. And we're like, fuck that. We want to know what you're doing. So
your dog's doing what I want my dog to do. I'll ask you questions about.
Yeah, that's enough buy-in for me. Yes. But hey Rod, if you could just tell us about like that transition, because what I was getting back to is doing 20 plus years dealing with military oriented people and all that. And in some ways, I know it's not completely black and white, but having that comfort of being in the same or similar environment, and then having to transition into, pretty much just being out there on your own, starting something new, really dialing it in. What did that look like as far as transitioning from? into your own business?
Well, usually, traditionally, most people fail at their first couple businesses. So I failed at my first business, and I'm proud to say that I failed, but I learned a lot from it. And I had all these ambitions when I left the military that I was just going to you know, that I was going to blow up, and I had all this information to offer to people. It didn't matter if it was military, law enforcement, whatever the case may be. So, uh, the transition was tough, man. Well, I was transitioning out of the military. I was retiring. So everybody, we all go through this phase when we officially retire or you separate, whatever the case may be. We have this mental approach to, like, screw civilians, whatever the case may be, or like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We have all these ambitions, and, the light at the end of the tunnel doesn't look like that. So you have to really start formulating about how you approach that exodus, what you're going to do with that exodus. I spend a little bit of my time helping other veterans that are either in the transition period of moving out of that to be able to do business with the federal government, as far as building their profile and getting them access to different things and how I do business, what I do now. That is probably a segment of my ambitions as far as my transition out, because I failed a lot at that coming out of the active as a retired E8. I mean, I thought I had all the answers, man. I really did. I thought I had everything figured out. So I went through segments of depression. Obviously I had PTSD, and it's just like this mentality that you got to take about just like, are you gonna move yourself beyond this? And it took my faith, and it took my wife, Michelle, and it took me just like saying like, hey, are you going to let this like put you in a situation or in a mental state that where you're not going to be able to move past it? And that's hard for veterans. And it's hard for people in those certain situations to move beyond that. And the greatest takeaway that I can get is, man, you just have to get up every day. Every day is a work day, and every day is a test. Every day is a work day, and every day is a test. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you don't. Yeah. It's tough, man. Like you got to be able to get out there and just put the work in. You can't expect all this stuff to come to you. And again, there's segments of my life, like my transition period when I left. I was an E8, got out, but did all this stuff. And then there were certain situations when I was in Iraq doing personal protection and doing high threat protection, where I had guys I was the only Air Force guy, and they were just like, hey man, we're running in these convoys, and they'd be just like, I was like, I had a question. Like, hey man, they would tell me like, you're in the shut the fuck up seat. Sit right there. And Jesus. I would sit there. I'm like, okay. I'm like, gotcha. Wow. It brings you back and it humbles you. And I think the humility of it, about being in like putting yourself in challenging situations, it hurt and it challenges you. But if you don't do it, then if you look at it on the back end of it, you're gonna come out better on the back end. And I really didn't do that intentionally. I did it because I needed to move forward. But the benefits of it was because I came out the back end, I was able to build my faith, meet a beautiful woman that supports me 100%. But however, moving forward, I took that and progressed that on from all the other jobs I did after that. And I humbled myself enough to shut my mouth in certain situations where there was more people that were smarter and better than me at doing a certain thing. And then I was able to marinate on that information and then build something now that I'm very proud of. And I still always want to give back to the community.
Oh, that's awesome. Like you said,
I know that's a long response.
No, that's perfect, man.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. Putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions, I 100% agree. It will make you a better person. You learn a lot about yourself when you have your back up against the wall like that. So,
and it hurts, man. It hurts.
Yeah. It seems like that's been consistent across the board with a lot of people we've talked to with that transition to pet dogs or running their own business is they threw themselves in that position. They had no way out, and you either overcome it or you fold. And
Yeah,
luckily,
there's no plan
I'm glad
B.
you're here. Yeah,
There's
no,
no
there
plan
can't be.
B. There can't be. And that's what I told. That's what I told my wife Michelle. I'm just like, hey, we're gonna do this. There's no plan B. It's either all or none.
Exactly. If you're thinking about a plan B, you're already trying to back out.
You are. Man.
There's an old, the only rap music I was allowed to listen to, well, around my parents, was Will Smith. And one of the lyrics, all right, thanks, guys.
You should have said that.
And it wasn't my choosing, man.
Huh?
One of his lyrics was, there's no plan B because it distracts from plan A. And that's actually,
Okay.
it actually fits. So Will played a role. That was also back in the early 2000s or 90s before all this silliness.
You dropping new music, so
Oh, God. All right. I don't think
What
there's
else
any
you guys got?
Yeah, I don't think there's any Will Smith fans, so we won't be losing them. No, no, I mean, honestly, man, going back to what John was saying, like, I even took a note, though. It took a lot, from what it sounds like from your story, it just took that external pressure to get you into where you're at now. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think your training, your experiences prior to the people you've been around, and seeing a lot of people out of the special forces community, that seems to be a very, very common denominator, is that once they leave that, they pursue better things. Not saying it's easy, but they definitely get the job done, and you're definitely a testament to that, Rod. John, you got anything? Or
I have some questions for you after everything. Trying to connect with some people and get some stuff set up, but we can do that off air.
Can I do just a few shout outs and just some upcoming events we have?
Yeah, that's going to be
Absolutely.
my next thing. Do shout outs. How do we find you? And what you're got going on, not in that order, but please. Yeah.
All right, let me do some shout outs to Billy Sawyer and Brian Heppelman of Bellator K9. We're going to have them out for April 14th through the 18th for our SWAT K9 integration course in Paris, Texas. Yeah, the great crew to work with. Also, Team Trifecta, we're going to be doing with Jim O'Brien of North Carolina K9 and Clover Strait, one of my boys from Colorado. He's going to be coming out for Maritime K9. It will be in Paris, Texas on July 8th through the 11th. And then the other title I want to give is to, obviously you guys already kind of mentioned his name, Dr. Stuart Hilliard from the DoD breeding program, Aaron Stice, my dog Aaron Stice, and JP LeBlanc JC, Jean-Paul LeBlanc from Direct Action K9, and just a plethora of other guys out there that are just doing work out there in the industry from the law enforcement side and the military side. Friction K9 guy just from Vortac, really really good company. So I just want to send a shout out to them. They're doing good work, and I'm looking forward to working with them in the future. Also, Nick Fontaine from Kilo 3, we worked in the past. Nick Fontaine, prior direct support operator from a tier 1 unit. Really good guy. He's currently doing a lot of contracts out there. So Kilo 3, shout out to you all.
Nice. All right. And if people want to get in touch with you, man, and ORO-K9, how do they get in contact with you?
So our website is ORO-K9services.com. And don't forget our workwear website is Old Republic of K9 Workwear. But you can actually get to that from our other website. But yeah, definitely look forward to the next events I'll also be at as the Military Working Dog Symposium in Alpena, Michigan. We'll be there teaching a course. We'll also be at the Advanced Tactical K9 Conference in Butlerville, Indiana in October. And also, right after that, I'll be at the Legacy Military U.S. War Dog Legacy Week in San Antonio, Texas, teaching a course. I don't even know what I'm teaching. Willie said, like, hey, man. He was like, you're going to come down and teach. I'm like, all right, man, whatever you need me to do. Yeah. So I'll be down there. I don't know what I'm teaching, but I'll be down there for Legacy Week for sure.
Sweet.
All right.
I'll definitely be ordering a hoodie from you here soon, because as soon as you got on, I'm like, I want that hoodie. So.
Yep. Yeah. So we're doing a restock here in the next week or so. and they'll be available. Then we got some other designs coming out.
All right,
Absolutely.
sweet. You got
Awesome.
a customer.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got 2 customers sitting here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. I'll probably see you. I should be going to the symposium, so hopefully we'll be able to meet in person.
Absolutely. So
And if not, for sure I'll see you. in
come see
October.
me at the booth. Come see me at the booth. I'll give you a free hoodie, some other swag.
We got it
And
on
then-
on air.
Well.
Don't let the whiskey fool you.
No. Hey,
No,
hey, no,
I'm
I'm
messing
serious,
with
man.
I'm messing with you. I know you.
No, I'm serious. Come hit me up
Okay.
at my booth. Free swag for you two, just for you two, man. I'm not giving out a discount code for anybody else.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to make sure we clarify that. People were swarming your booth for all the wrong reasons. But yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We might have some merch. We should have some merch by then. We will. I'll bring it with me.
I just sent out my last 2 hats today. Oh, no. No, I got a third. I said, I'll get your address and I will send you a hat out.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Hey man, good talking with y'all. Thank you for the it wasn't really an invite. It was more of like a solicitation from my side, but I was just like, hey, because I've been listening to your stuff. I've been listening to your stuff. I just like, hey man, this is good. This is good. You guys talk very well together, and I was just like, man, I can get it out of that.
No, I
when you
appreciate
reached
you
out-
reaching out, man, because I would not have. I'm a recluse. Like the interviews we've got, I'm like drinking before I type the message and shit. I'm like, fuck, what if they say no? So actually, when you hit me up, I was like, oh shit, like we're getting out there. Last question though, before we wrap up for real. How did you hear about us? Because I always assume nobody listens to it.
Well, first, don't say that.
I just
Everybody listens to it.
I'm being honest, man. I do.
I can't remember who he is, but I follow him on. He's out in South Carolina, North Carolina. Mexican guy. He's kind of a big dude.
Not
Does,
John
a bunch of
Aguilar.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
full
so
circle,
I saw-
dude.
yeah, full circle, first circle. I was just like, because I follow, because he does. I like a lot of the stuff he does, and I always follow him. And he's just funny. He's got a good. I think he just has a really good personality, and that adds to. If you have a good personality, it adds to your marketing capability, especially for pet dogs.
Yeah.
So I always watch him, and he's just like he cracks me up, and he does like a lot of good behavioral stuff with small dogs and big dogs. And,
Yeah.
and he's always put in work. And so I just like, hey man, like, were you on like a podcast or something? He was like, yeah, it's these guys. And then I started doing, I always got to do my research.
Of course.
But I'm just like, well, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm already listening to them. I'm like, who? So I had already listened to like maybe 2 or 3 episodes that you all had.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't say that in his little description that who it was. And so I'm just like, is that a podcast? He said, yeah, it's, I'm like, well, I'm already listening to them, or I had listened to like at least like 3 of your podcasts already. And so I'm just like, okay, but I never did the background. I'm just like, and then you don't have like that included. And then, like your military background and all that stuff. So I was just like, okay. And then when he sent me the message, he said like, yeah, they're both Marines prior, one's active duty still. And I'm like, oh, they probably know the same people I do. So I'm just like, that's why I reached out.
No, I appreciate
That's really why I reached out, because there's typically, we cross paths at some point,
Right.
or whatever the case may be, or even in your own generation, I probably know somebody, just like you said, with Dusty and all that. And, I just like, they probably know somebody I know, or we probably crossed paths recently.
Yeah, actually,
So.
I think you did an event last year, a couple events maybe with Josh Araggio and his wife.
Yes.
Rachel. Yeah,
Yes.
very good friends of
Yep.
mine. Very good friends.
Yep. So I did, Josh and I did a couple detection courses, and then we did one up at Fort Leonard. We actually did 2 at Fort Leonard. Yep. So if you go to my website, you look at my trusted affiliates. It has
Oh, really?
Paws. Yeah. It has, if you scroll down to the bottom, it has, Paws and Footprints Training Academy, Kilo 3, Raider K9, Kilo. Yeah. It has all
Raider.
the people
We do work with Ben.
Yeah. So Ben was my kennel master at 10th Group.
Shut the fuck up, dude. That's funny.
Dude.
Really?
So like, yeah. So
Yeah,
everything that I do for pet dog training, I sell. Like I'm pretty much committed to Raider K9. So everything I do, long lines, dominant dog collars.
Got the
mine's in
leash.
my one
Yeah.
downstairs for a pet that I'm training. But yeah, dude,
Yeah.
we're
So
actually
I do everything. Yeah. So him and I have a really good relationship because I'm exclusive with him. Every pet dog that I send out of here, it's Raider K9. It's either a dominant dog collar or long line or whatever it is, a slip lead or whatever the case may be. So I purchase from him regularly.
crap, man. Yeah, we got to talk offline if you have time.
Hey, yeah,
For a quick
absolutely.
second, because
Yep.
yeah, man. No, that's awesome. All right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. John and I are dog shit. Real quick, John, how do people get with you if they want to talk to you?
Jonathon Moses K9 on everything. I keep it simple. Just reach out on there. I'm pretty much always available. Well, all right. I'm pretty swamped the next few weeks, but I will get back to you at some point.
I was here to say we were supposed to do this podcast last night and you weren't available.
I know.
so
I
don't
said
say that.
I'm not used to being tied up like this.
No, he's transitioning
Yeah.
in a way of work.
Well, you got to clarify in
Yeah, that's
2025
what-
what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His work schedule is transitioning.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, for some reason, if you want to talk to me or whatever, I'm very open. Reach out. Sean White, SeanWhit, letter K, number 9, and whatever platform you want to search, and you can find me, get in touch with us. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's good. Leave
All right.
a review. We're struggling. I'm trying to figure out,
How to get reviews.
yeah, how to get reviews.
Because apparently people listen, so that's cool.
Listen and then review. But all right, now we'll do it for another episode of Working Dogs and Whiskey. A-Rod, brother, thank you so much for reaching out. Like, this has been nice, honestly.
Yeah. It's
So,
been a really good one.
yeah,
It was a good talk, even though that you kind of gave me like that dopamine spike yesterday when I'm like, I gotta leave. I gotta head back because I gotta prep for this
Fuck,
for
dude.
this
Oh my god.
for this this podcast. I get back in like 20 minutes later. You're like, it was like sad trombone.
All right. Yeah, full disclosure,
I was just like, God dang! I was just like, oh.
yeah, we were supposed to do this last night.
I was
And
just like, all right. I'm like, all right, man. I'm just going to bed.
no, well, that's a testament to your character, though. You're still committed to the cause, because you could have been like, because I told John, I was like, I don't know if he's going to come back on here. But I really felt bad. And you're the first person that we've ever done this to. And then even
Hey,
setting
life
up,
happens, man.
yeah, even setting up just now when we were getting prepped, I'm like, John's like putting collars on dogs. He's prepping. I'm like, brother, we're 5 minutes behind. Like, please, we were supposed to do this. I'm sorry. We're 24 hours and 5 minutes behind. If you can fucking wrap this up. But no, A-Rod, I appreciate you, man. I mean, I know that was probably a decent letdown. You could have been doing way better things with your time if we could have forecasted that a little bit better. But
Yeah.
I
Like
do
sleeping.
genuinely appreciate it. Like sleeping. Yes, that's a big one. No, I genuinely appreciate it. I'll tell you what, I owe
Yeah,
you a
man.
drink. I owe you a drink at the symposium. How about that?
All right.
All right.
Orange JMO.
Huh?
Orange
JMO?
Jameson.
Oh, Orange Jameson? Oh, easy.
All right.
Yeah.
I got you. All right.
All
All right, that'll do it for real.
right.
All right.
Free your mind.